Washington and Lee University, who just killed off the Lee from Washington and Lee, are now offering a course on how students can learn to overthrow the state. Teaching ignorant kids that canceling Lee is some kind of social justice virtue is a pretty good starting place for revolution, I'd say. Class or no class. I'm Dr. Duke, she's Katie, and this is the Dr. Duke Show. Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Dr. Duke Show, the only program that keeps you educated on the craziness impacting K-12 classrooms and college campuses around the world. Today, we start in Lexington, Virginia, where a university is now offering a course on how to overthrow the state and requires students to write their own manifesto, or I suppose, womanifesto, right? Here you go. And so Washington Lee, they've already gotten rid of Lee in their name because, you know, General Robert E. Lee is a bastard, apparently. And Washington has to go too. The faculty are already talking about, and it makes sense. I've said this from the very beginning. If the Confederates have to go, those who did not reverse the Confederacy have to go too. It's not enough to be a slave owner like Lee was. If you're the first president of the United States, you didn't get rid of slavery, you're just as bad or worse. So we'll see what they change their name into. Maybe, how about Marx and Lenin University? That's probably the best thing for them. They're offering a freshman writing course. I love this. As an English professor, this is a clear indication, Mom and Dad, of when your kids sign up for courses they can't untake. Everybody has to take the freshman writing course, which isn't about grammar and syntax anymore, which isn't about correct writing anymore. It's not about literacy and mellifluousness in your writing and correctness, because all those things are holdovers of white supremacy and the oppression of black people. No, your kid's freshman writing course, his freshman seminar, all about this kind of stuff. And I've seen a lot of bad courses promoting abortion, homosexuality, transgenderism. They're normative courses in freshman writing. But this is a new bridge over here. This is a new bridge broached for the first time. Let's teach kids how to overthrow their own country.
Writing Seminar 100, Section 18, pick any other section other than 18, is how to overthrow the state. It'll be a 3-credit you're going to get earned for your first year class standing only, and it counts towards your accredited college degree from Washington and Lee University. And as the course description states, this course places each student at the head of a popular revolutionary movement aiming to overthrow a sitting government and forge a better society. It's like the start of a video game. Like, this is what you do. Okay. How will you attain power? How will you communicate with the masses? How do you plan on improving the lives of people? How will you deal with the past? Wow, these are a lot of questions they're going to have to answer. From Frantz Fanon to Che Guevara, of course, to Mahatma Gandhi and others, we explore examples of revolutionary thought and action from across the global South. Students engage these texts by participating in a variety of writing exercises, such as producing a manifesto, drafting a white paper, terminology.
Manifestos and white papers.
That critically analyzes a particular issue, and writing a persuasive essay on rewriting history and confronting memory. Alarm bells. If you're reading even half of what I just read, alarm bells. Parents, get your kid out of this class.
Well, and this is what, if you remember, we did in our instant classic yesterday, we would Jeremy Bentham, the utilitarian. This is exactly an example of the problem with his philosophy. Look at what the assumption is. The assumption the teacher makes is in every way, always, revolution and overthrow leads to better, not worse. There's not the slightest hint, and you're actually reading people like Che Guevara, who created Castro's killing fields, who had the power to promote his own revolutionary values, and you got a lot of dead people for it. It's the utopian, progressive, atheist mentality that says anything's better, that no matter what we do by getting rid of this corrupt American government with its commitments to freedom and Republican forms of government, getting rid of that no matter what these kids choose is going to be better. There's not even the smallest room to suggest, hey, that maybe you're going to get a lot worse. History would suggest that throwing off the Republic isn't going to lead to better. It's going to lead to a lot worse.
I just want to know if on the day they talk about Che, which, well, I guess that would be every day of the semester, if they get extra credit points, if they dress in uniform, with Che properly
Yeah, isn't it amazing how these progressives hate the military?
And yet they put you on.
Every single thug third world socialist in a camouflage outfit, like Sean Penn loses his mind. Remember when he flew down to talk to Hugo Chavez, right? And argued that there was so much greater creative room for actors in Venezuela, communist Venezuela, than there was in Hollywood.
And you had already talked about how they're trying to get rid of, General Lee on the campus, and you got to get rid of Washington. You got to get rid of that. Apparently, the collective, the faculty, have made a statement on Lee and why that the faculty has not included a demand to drop Washington in their petition. So they've actually kind of delineated between the two. But the chaos that's happening at that campus and all the other ones is going to come to your campus pretty quick. So that campus is having a lot of issues going on in addition to, trying to get rid of their namesakes. They're doing how to overthrow the government. I wanted to take a look at their history department personally and see what classes they're offering this semester. They have ones that are labeled by normal names, but the ones that are blatantly obvious are in the namesake. They have a semester-long course called The Age of Witch Hunts, if you want to learn about witch hunts.
Oh, good. Are they going to study what's been done to Donald Trump?
How
much
probably
you
not.
Want to bet they're not?
Oh, probably not. They have a course called Science, the Paranormal, and the Supernatural.
Wow.
I hope they watched the show. Apparently that's coming to an end, the Supernatural show. Anyway, and they also have Scotland, Braveheart to Brexit. I just like the title of it because Braveheart to Brexit. I thought it was funny. That's
Scotland!
all. Scotland!
It's not Scottish, it's crap! Yeah, the thing that I find really interesting about these schools is this is just a dippy little liberal arts college. I've said this to moms and dads before. Mom, you don't make this mistake. You think that you're not going to send your kid to the big school, right? I'm not going to send him to the University of Virginia. It's expensive and those professors are out of control. But do you understand that the small liberal arts colleges are as expensive and there's no control? Send your kid, if you got to send your kid to college, send him to a state college. Because usually there's a legislature, a state legislature, that has some power over what goes on in the school. The legislature pays the money to keep the universities running if they're public universities, which means you have avenues where you can petition for help. These little liberal arts colleges, there's no one overseeing them. They're private schools. They don't even have to necessarily give you First Amendment rights. It's much harder to have freedom of thought, freedom of association on a dinky little 1,000 seat liberal arts college. Avoid them like the plague. They are 10 times more radical. People are watching what's going on at the University of Virginia. People know when the University of Virginia steps over a line. They get national and international attention. But when this stupid little college, Washington College, when they step over the line, no one's paying attention. And because they're a private school that you're paying $30,000 a year for, they can strip your kids of freedom of association and freedom of speech rights. And there's not much you can do with it. They're much worse.
We got to have a fun story in here. So we have Campus Reform out there doing their thing, just going to the universities, asking college kids questions and hearing stupid answers. And we have the new editor-in-chief, Cabot Phillips, going back to his old stomping grounds because he used to be the one who would do all these, man-on-the-street type interviews. And so he went to George Washington University, and he wanted to ask students if rioting is ever justified.
Do you think that looting is ever something that can be justified in terms of a protest?
Yeah, in my opinion, I think definitely it could be justified, given that that's pretty much the only way we could get our message out there.
I'm in support of the riots personally. Whatever you need to do to be heard is the cost of it.
I feel like it's inevitable that if change is going to come, there will be some violence that comes with that.
Honestly, I think it's justified. I mean, the people in power have stolen so much more. Anything that any of them loot will never match up to how much has been stolen from them.
I think it is sort of necessary because we haven't been getting traction that probably needs to happen.
Again, just like with the faculty in the last story, so with the students. They are so sure and entitled in believing that their way is the only solution, that if you got to break a few eggs in Lenin's terms, you got to do it. You got to kill a few people, you got to burn a few businesses down, you got to destroy a few inner cities, where black people live, the poor places, you got to burn them down, you got to do it. This is necessary. In order for our message to get some traction, we're not being heard. Translation, you're not doing what we demand you do right now. Drop everything you know. Drop deliberation. Drop broader pictures. Drop doing studies and reading books about the feasibility of this stuff. Give us what we want now, or hey, this is justified. Notice in the last story and in this story, one is about faculty entitlement. Right? We believe that any kind of revolution against this corrupt American government is a positive thing in the end. And we're not even going to consider the fact that things can get a lot worse, despite what history shows us. You've got the entitlement of the faculty, and what does that give way to? The even more ignorant entitlement of the student. And you just saw it on campus, one after another. Yep, it's justified. Why? Because we're not being heard. Because if that's what it takes to get, if what we have to do is be violent to get what we want, well, that's worth doing. Notice the moral anarchy that the teachers have bred in the kids. It stems from the teachers down to the students. This is your future, America, unless somebody gets a handle on this kind of crass and dangerous entitlement. It is not just amoral, it's anti-moral. I can kill you, I can take your property, I can burn down things, I can destroy your cities if we're not being heard, which means you don't give us everything we ask for.
The radicals of the 60s are the professors of the
I don't think the 60s. Do you think the 60s radicals were this bad? This incoherent?
Watch my previous video talking about the radicals back in the 60s and today, and how they're pretty much one and the same. The radicals of the 60s became the professors and the business people of, well, not anymore because all the businesses are burned down, but became the head honchos then of today to teach then this next generation of them. And now we're actually at the point where not only is it okay we're justified in doing all the looting and the rioting, we're going to hold rallies in support of those from the looting and the riots. Black Lives Matter in Chicago just rallied and defended more than 100 people who were arrested because they looted the city. If you've seen the videos of people just breaking into windows, just going down the street and taking whatever they want. And the Black Lives Matter organizer, Ariel Atkins, justified the estimated $60 million in damage as just simply being reparations. Duh. She said, I don't care if someone decides to loot a Gucci or a Macy's or a Nike store, because that makes sure that person eats. That makes sure that person has clothes. That is reparations. Anything they wanted to take, they can take it because these businesses have insurance.
And this is the false equivalent, that the only reason, this is Jeremy Bentham. This is pure Benthamitism, utilitarianism. The false argument that because inner city black people are naked and starving to death, which is demonstrably not true. If you had dying babies with bloated bellies like they have in Africa, with flies crawling across their eyes, if you had that in downtown Chicago, you'd have a much bigger protest than the Black Lives protest. You don't have it. But because robbing Gucci and Nike, right? Although it's hard to be sympathetic for Nike. Nike ought to just say, hey, we're going to have, between the hours of 2 and 4, Nike should say, we're going to have free looting of our stores for all African Americans.
But that's time domain. You can't put time domain. That's racist. You can't put a limit on
time.
Well,
then for 6 hours, for one whole day, we'll let African Americans, and they can choose it.
Friday.
They get to completely come. That would be more honest about Nike to do it. But you see, my broader point here is that the entitlement here, that this is what happens when you only allow one-way teaching. There's no one on campus who's challenging these narratives. There's no one to look these kids in the eye and say, grow up. The Constitution and the Creator God guarantee private property. You have the right to own property. You don't have the right to destroy somebody else's property because of your personal grievance against the government, not necessarily against the shop owner. And violence is completely off the table here. But some of you don't seem bothered by that either. So as you said, they're marching now not just to loot and to engage in acts of arson, but to get their looters who get arrested out of jail.
So as we talked about the professors who are teaching the students, we have a professor who's probably taught by one of those radicals who's now trying to basically tell his students exactly what they can think. We have a student who could face the consequence of not towing the line, we'll call it, not towing the line in his college classroom. He could be failed if he does not toe the line. This is at Illinois Central College. The professor has threatened to fail a student who objected to writing an anti-Donald Trump paper, and we'll get to that more on it later. But American history professor Troy Doherty showed his full bias when he told his class that President Trump was not fit for the office of the presidency and is a pathological liar. And he then threatened to fail a student who decided to basically give Donald Trump a little positivity, show him in a positive light in his paper. So Doherty had emailed students about this upcoming paper assignment, and Young America's Foundation got a copy of this email. And so the assignment was that the students are to write a 5 to 7 page research paper or a book review, of their choice. But then if you look in the third paragraph of this email, it states that it must be a book, quote, dealing with Donald J. Trump or a research paper on some aspect of Donald J. Trump, end quote, because it's an election year. That's exactly because it's an election year. So, hey, why not? We'll just do it this way.
Let's force you to write anti-Trump propaganda a couple of months before you go vote.
And then since, college kids tend to really not pay attention or care unless they're like directly being told what they're supposed to do, he then give them recommendations for what they can read if they want to do the book review part. He said they could read The Room Where It Happened by John Bolton because he personally is halfway done with it. It must be a barn burner. And he said it confirms for anyone interested in Donald J. Trump that Donald J. Trump is not fit for the office of presidency. Spoiler alert, according to him. He just ruined the book review. Like, he just did the review himself. His students can also read James Comey's book. Bob Woodward has a new book out, too. Or Mary Trump, her book called, Fire and Fury. And he says all of these are of interest.
Right. And notice what
This
you
is
don't
in
get.
his email.
You don't get
This
a
is
single
exactly-
book by anybody to supporting him. What's really
Yeah.
bizarre about this, not bizarre, again, it's academic privilege. It's the right to only believe one thing. This is what you get. There's not a possibility out there to this professor that there can be the fact that people, both inside and outside his cabinet, condemned the Bolton book, said most of that stuff never happened. Nothing is going to change the mind of this guy. He knows what the narrative is, and this is suicide. This is intellectual suicide for universities when they do this. You can do your report as long as you see it the same way that I do. And what happened to the kid who tried to? Tell me more about the kid.
Well, I haven't even gotten there because there's more to.
Okay.
There's more before we even get to this kid. So we're just going to lay it out. So if you don't want to review a book, then he gives you ideas for like the topics you could talk about for the president's life, such as that he's a pathological liar, a sexual predator. Other proposed subjects include Trump's immigration policies, his tax reform law, and Stormy Daniels. You could actually write about Stormy Daniels.
How about Tara Reid? How about Tara Reid? How about Gropem Joe? How about the pathological lie about his wife's using his wife's a lie about his dead wife in a car accident? How about those lies?
That was not in the email.
If you did a class like this and you gave them an option. Here are the lies, the sexual harassment. Here are the dishonesties, the bogus policies of Joe Biden. Here they are from Donald Trump. Pick one of the two and write a book review or a research paper. There you would have balance. That would be an annoying class, but it would be fair class, not what this guy's doing.
Yeah, so here's the deal. If you want to write something even somewhat positive about President Trump, like if they wanted to cover the art of the deal, the book, Trump's book, they must conduct a bit of outside research to see what the co-author has since written about the book itself and Trump, and that students must run their topic by the professor first. Yes. Mm-hmm. If it even,
in other words, you can do pro-Trump stuff if there's anti-Trump stuff around it.
Not even pro-Trump, but just like neutral Trump even, I think. Okay, and this is where we get to our brave student who decided to email the professor, and he said that he wanted to write about Trump's view on abortion. Okay, so the kid emailed. He says, I'm wondering if our differences will affect my grade in class. The professor approved the student's topic, but there's a little caveat saying that if the student wrote about Trump's view on abortion without putting it into the entirely negative context clearly desired by the professor, he threatened that you will get an F. Do you understand? Do not be Pollyanna. That's in his email.
Right.
To the student.
If those kids called it, say somebody they read Bolton's book, and then spent their paper critiquing Bolton for lying.
Oh, no.
That would never happen. So the sources that condemn Trump are immutable. You can't argue with them. The ones that support Trump, you better find a way to put those in anti-Trump light so you can't do it too.
The only positive that we can say is the university or the college sort of responded positively, saying that Doherty can't do that. But he says, while we are not able to discuss personnel issues, we have addressed this moving forward. The incident serves as a great reminder to us all to practice etiquette regarding political preferences and beliefs. So depending if what they're going to look at it, supposedly, and he could face, penalty. I'm not even sure what they're
Nothing's
going to do, but saying that you can't just fail a kid for
I'm
the
sure.
difference of opinion.
Because he only threatened, he didn't do it.
So, yeah.
So I'm sure what they told him is, if some kid writes a pro-Trump paper, you can't fail him.
Okay.
I'm sure that's all they told him.
Will the kid get a D? That's the question.
And that's the problem. So maybe the kid won't be able, but you know as well as I do, sometimes the punishment, and I see this at my university, it's not giving conservatives kids Fs instead of As. It's giving conservatives who earn As, Bs, and Cs. That's how, it's the stupid ideologue that goes from an A to an F. And Mr. Doherty certainly seems to be that kind of an ideologue. But the smart way to do it, and we see it every day, give the A kid a B minus and snicker at him. There's nothing they can do.
It's time for some real education. The National Monument to the Forefathers, formerly known as the Pilgrim Monument, commemorates the Mayflower Pilgrims. Dedicated on August 1st, 1889, it honors their ideals as what is generally embraced by the United States. It's thought to be the world's largest solid granite monument. Located in Plymouth, Massachusetts, the 81-foot-tall monument was commissioned by the Pilgrim Society. The original concept dates to around 1820, with an actual planning beginning in 1850. The cornerstone was laid on August 2nd, 1859, by the Grand Lodge of Masons in Massachusetts under the direction of Grand Master John T. Hurd. The monument was completed in October of 1888 and was dedicated with appropriate ceremonies on August 1st, 1889.
Yeah, and this is one of the lesser known monuments outside of patriot circles. You think of the Washington landscape is full of them. You think of the Statue of Liberty. This is not one that gets a lot of attention. It's not, to be fair, it's not the most artistic work that you're going to find. It's not the most aesthetically pleasing. It's not the highest quality in terms of artistic genius. Show them the picture, Mike. You have the monument. It's a solid monument. It's a worthy monument. Of course, when Plymouth Rock, 1620, these pilgrims, when they got off the boat, they named their new colony Plymouth. Almost right across the ocean from Plymouth, Massachusetts, you have Plymouth in England. So there's a parallelism there. The monument faces northeast to Plymouth Harbor and roughly towards Plymouth, England. The plan of the principal pedestal is octagonal, with 4 small and 4 large faces. From the small faces project 4 buttresses. The buttresses are what help stabilize the statues. On the main pedestal stands the heroic figure of Faith. There she is, with her right hand pointing toward heaven, her left hand clutching the Bible. Again, you wonder in this area, I'm almost loath to talk about this lest some punk gets the idea to go attack it. So far, it has survived this very nicely. Faith, which she's got a Bible in one hand, she points to God in the other hand. Upon the 4 buttresses are also seated figures emblematic of the principles upon which the Pilgrims founded their commonwealth. Counterclockwise from the east, they are morality, law, education, and liberty. The monument honors morality, law, education, and liberty. Take the protests that are going around the country now, tearing down statues like this. They are lawless, they are immoral, they are the result of a lousy education system, and they are anti-liberty. The Founding Fathers understood correctly, and this monument, which honors the Founding Fathers, understands correctly. Without morality, law, serious education, and a move toward liberty, you get what you're seeing now, the anarchy. And it's a great testament that monument still stands proud to this day. And by the way, we filmed an entire documentary about this monument. Go to FreedomProject.com, that's FreedomProject.com, and you can watch this really well done, professionally edited documentary all about the Founders Monument.
All right, well, just as a reminder, these premier, precious, lovely beverage vessels of freedom are now available when you join our brand new, awesome Patriot Club with a one-time $99 tax-deductible donation. All you have to do to get one of these is visit patriotclub.us. That's patriotclub.us. And just so you know, your gift keeps this show going. So we thank you very much for all of those who have joined and become wonderful patriots. Now we're going to wrap things up with the fun fact of the day. Since we talked about Donald Trump, who is, big orange man bad, the first oranges were actually not the color orange. I did not know that. They were actually green. Even today, where it's, warmer climates like Vietnam and Thailand, oranges stay green through maturity.
I'm not sure Green Man would be better than Orange Man.
I don't know.
Nevertheless, that's going to do it for us for this show. For Freedom Project, I'm Dr. Duke. She's Katie. Until next time, stay educated, my friends.